I'm joined now by someone who had an awful lot to do with the creatures and monsters of Peter Capaldi's final series of Doctor Who. So I would like to introduce creature and prosthetic effects technician Jimmy Mann. How are you?
Hi, very good, thank you. How are you doing?
Not bad, thanks. No, you're obviously a Doctor Who fan, I think we can see from the background. Did you think you'd be
Oh,
asked to talk about it during all this?
yeah, I mean, I love to talk about Doctor Who, so this is lovely, and I think it saves me from talking to my cat about Doctor Who. So that's yeah, lovely. Yeah, massive fan of Doctor Who.
So am I right in thinking that in terms of Doctor Who, you were responsible for creature effects, you're a technician working as part of that team? What does that involve?
So buckle in. This is a very wide-ranging question. So I was part of. So I worked for Millennium Effects, and it was an incredible company and an incredible team. And we were all of us were working in different ways on various different creatures. And the thing with that is that dependent on the creature, you might be doing something entirely different. I was very lucky at one point to halfway through the series to be able to go on set with the Ice Warriors. And then I stayed there. So when you're working in creature effects, your job could range from sculpting to mold making to foam running, silicon running, painting, piecing it all together, sticking it on a person or dressing a person, looking after them on the day, and then taking it all off in the evening or morning, and then doing it all over again. My specific job changed depending on what I was doing, and that's the main thing with something like Doctor Who. Your everyday job changes dependent on what's on the script. And as I said, I was very lucky to. So I was doing a lot of stuff in the mold shop, and making molds of things and giving them to other people to do. And then at a later date, I went and was a technician with the creatures and looking after them all. Yeah, it's a very wide array of things that one gets to do. And funnily enough, it's similar to the classic series in as much as Doctor Who is so massive that every episode is a bit different, and your job changes drastically dependent on what's going on, which is fun, which is great.
And is that something that is perhaps unique to Doctor Who, or is it other shows have it but just not quite on that scale?
Yeah, I think other shows do have it to some extent. But something like a movie will have a massive various departments, a whole range of things, and you'll have people doing specific jobs because you're pumping out this you're part of this massive monster, this massive machine. Doctor Who, even though it is a massive monster and a massive machine as well, because of the kind of relationship that Millennium had with Cardiff and with Doctor Who, and just because of the wide range of skills that they had, and other special effects companies have, I think you do a little bit more in Doctor Who. I think you're pushing those boundaries a bit more.
So am I right in thinking that your first contact with the worlds of Doctor Who would have been on Class?
Yes. No, actually. Come to think of it, so as a professional nonsense maker, which I suppose we are, I was working at Robert Alsop's and Associates, and I was there on series 9. And I was doing a bit of stuff over there, and I worked on I can't remember now. The episode with Ashilda, and you've got the god up in the sky. His wings on his helmet, I sculpted those wings and then molded them and cast them out. They're only in kind of thin plastic. So I did those things, and then it was given to the other guys to fix and to sort out and to paint. And then I did the lion. I can never remember any of the names. It's awful, isn't it? The Lion Man's leather tabard thing. All these leather pieces that go on it. It was so difficult to do. It was an amazing thing, but it was so very difficult to do. But had all these leather shapes on top of the leather tabard. So I was the lucky one to cut all those out and to put them all to put, kind of stick them all together. So that was my first contact. And then I went away to do a couple of different films, and then I went to Millennium, and then I was on class on that. And that was quite a cool ride. Yeah.
Good for that. I imagine it was the Shadowkin that kept you particularly busy, and we're talking full prosthetics for that. Is that, I imagine, more complicated than just sort of head and hands work?
I think with the Shadowkin, funnily enough, it was reduced quite easily to foam, like foam suits. I think it was PT Flex or something kind of really, really rigid. I'm trying to kind of remember all of this because it was such a long time ago now. So it was like a polyfoam suit. I think polyfoam hands and arms, just so it's easy to pull on, and then the and then the front facing like the hero ones had prosthetics and then a cowl over the top, and so it was all of those things, and I was on it was quite a big team of there was a lot of people on those. There was a lot of pieces, legs and bodies and arms and hands and helmets, and then other pieces. And so it was mainly the Shadowkin that I was on then, and the Quill Goddess. I think I was part of the quite large moulding team of the Quill Goddess. Is that right? Yeah, I think it is. I think so.
Spencer Wilding's character.
Yes. Yeah, it was. Yes, it was. We live cast him, and he was an absolute legend. A real legend. And that was straight off the back of him doing Darth Vader, I think. I'm trying to remember the timeline, but I think he was on Rogue One before that. Spoilers. If anyone doesn't know, knows what happened in Rogue One, spoilers. He was a laugh. That was good.
You must find yourself coming into contact with a lot of the same sort of creature characters or monster actors when you're doing this work between various, Doctor Who, Class, Star Wars. Is it the same group of people that you're working with?
I think yes. I think TV and film are sometimes only because of the areas that they're in. So something like Star Wars, there's quite a specific team that have done all the Star Wars films, and they do a lot of those things. And I think because of the teams that we're working for, so they kind of hire the same kinds of people, and then Doctor Who have a lot of the same people, the same pool of people. However, there are lots of crossovers and changes. Paul Casey was on Star Wars, and he was the main. I might need to double check that. I think it is. I might need to double check that, but I think so. Paul Casey was one of the main character actors on Star Wars, and he helped with a lot of the movement, and he was kind of like a go-to for the suits and trying to work out how to work and act in these suits. And obviously he was on Doctor Who and Doctor Who legend. Funnily enough, I was in Pinewood. I never want to be the kind of person that says all these words and names and things and be like, oh, this happened and that happened. But it is strange when these things happen. So Liam, who was the kind of Cyber Bill main hero Mondasian, he was on I think it was one of the new.
It wouldn't be Fantastic Creatures.
And where to find them. He was in one of those at Pinewood, and I saw him from across the car park, and we had a slow motion run and hug because it'd been quite a long time. So yeah, sometimes these usually you've got all these pockets of people, but they kind of come together in sometimes the weirdest of ways. Yeah.
And you mentioned there the Mondassian Cybermen. Something like that, is that more costume than sort of prosthetic monster, or is it sort of a meeting of the two?
I think it's a meeting of the two because I think it was the I can't remember the details of it, but especially for us, Gary Pollard, who is the main like one of the main sculptors and kind of character creation guys at Millennium, he was the one that pushed the look of the new Mondasians, and also a whole load of other creatures in Series 10. That was very much his handiwork in a lot of the stuff, and he was quite instrumental in pushing that. Whereas if Millennium wasn't at that time a company which did a lot of those things and was just a prosthetics company, then yeah, there would have been maybe an element of costume going in there and creating that, because it would have been more of a costume thing. But yet again, it depends on what the script is and kind of what those initial meetings are. And Kate Walsh, who is the kind of head honcho on Doctor Who for Millennium, like she works at Millennium, and she would be the one that'll be doing a lot of the meetings. I've lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, so she was one of the main people, along with Neil Gorton, who was kind of created Millennium, and still got quite does a lot of the sculpting stuff as well. They're the ones that kind of say, yeah, we can do that, and we've got people that can do something like that. But yeah, sometimes dependent on what, I mean, it's dependent on what the script is. It's quite magical in that way, really. You're kind of trying to reinvent everything all the time. Yeah, it's a very interesting. It's just very interesting how everything all kind of works out.
And I suppose with any creatures, what sort of lead time do you have on those? Is it normally quite last minute, or do you have, particularly with something like the Cybermen, time to really develop and come up with various concepts?
For a TV show that is about time and about time travel, 9 times out of 10, you get no time to make any of this stuff. There is absolutely no time. I think a lot of people would like a lot more time to do these things. And it just works out that scheduling, and sometimes there's not much money because you're trying to make you're trying to make Star Wars and trying to compete with Star Wars and all these kind of things. And you're trying to make that on a TV budget, which is how Doctor Who has always been made. So there's a lot of creative decisions that are made to create something like that. Yeah, so usually there's not much time. I remember being, because I was primarily I was in the mould shop, or kind of downstairs doing all those things, and someone would come in and say, we've got to make however many of these things, and it's got to be done tonight, and it's shipped off to Cardiff tomorrow morning, and it's on set at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. So we're going to order you some pizza. Yeah, it's quite a lot of camaraderie that goes on with something like that. So yeah, you would hope that there's more time, but there never really is. But I guess that's the nature of the monster.
But a character I believe you had more to do with on set was the return of the Ice Warriors in Empress of Mars.
Yeah, well, yes, I've said before, I was very lucky with that one, because I was still doing things in the mold shop, and I was very lucky that, because I think it was because I was a Doctor Who fan, and they needed someone to go in for 2 days to fill in with someone who unfortunately wasn't very well. So I went up and was there helping out, just with putting on these incredibly heavy suits onto these actors that are 7 foot tall. And I was there for the rest of the story, because there was it was quite a quick turnaround for a lot of these things, and there was quite a few. There were three ice warriors, and then the Empress. So I was kind of jumping between all of them, helping all of them, because they all had one person that kind of one to two people that looked after them. The Empress had two, because she obviously had a lot of prosthetic, and she was kind of, there was lots of very interesting, intricate parts to do with their costume. And then I was kind of jumping around, helping all of them, with a gigantic fan, trying to fan the poor guys that were in those costumes. Just try and fan them all down, because they were sweating so much, and there's the dust in the studio, the red dust, ruined a pair of my shoes. They were so hot, bless them. So I was going around fanning a lot of them. So you'd hear this massive thwarp, and kind of you'd see me jumping around fanning a lot of them. But yeah, so I was very, very lucky to get involved in that stuff. Otherwise, I probably would have been making more stuff for later, and then other jobs as well, not stuff to do with not even Doctor Who.
And on set, are people quite understanding of not only what you've got to do, but also the actors in these costumes, or is it just we've got to get the shots in and quite rushed?
I think everyone is extremely professional and knows what they need to do. And a lot of the time, walking around with huge feet and massive boots and not being able to see at all is cumbersome, not just for the creatures and the actors themselves, but also for the cameramen and the people that are kind of tapping their wrist and saying, we've got to get all of this done. So there's an element of understanding that you've got these ridiculous creatures, but also, obviously there's no, people might just be saying a lot of the time, we need to get this done. Is there any way that we can speed this up? So there's not like obviously I'm not throwing anyone under any hypothetical bus or anything like that, but you'd expect, if you've got to do a job, you've got to speed up and do these things. And sometimes the designs of these things, or just the way that they are, or the fact that you've got a creature that's got to walk through you've got a creature that's got to walk through a door or something, and then sometimes the door isn't the right size, because that the actor might be a different actor to the one that was measured. And Doctor Who is so fast paced and so quick. As I said, you're creating something that sometimes might go on set the next day. It is amazing what is created, and it's purely because there's people that are going, okay, let's do this now, this has got to happen, this explosion has got to happen, that has got to come out here, and then we've got to somehow have 5 of these creatures all at once, and it's mad. So there's a lot of running around.
And having had that sort of on-set experience, when you are back in the workshop, making the molds, putting these costumes together, does it influence how you do it? Because you can practically think what the condition will be like on set.
Yeah, so I really cut my teeth on Doctor Who professionally, and I was really thrown into, as everyone is, you're kind of thrown in to do loads of different things. After being on set, you understand a lot more. obviously I was such a small part. I just want to reiterate, like, there's such a small, I was a tiny part of Doctor Who, because especially within Millennium, there's hundreds of people that come in daily, and there's a whirlwind of jobs, because you might be working on one thing and then suddenly you're doing something else. And whilst you're fiberglassing something, you're also making an advert for Homebase, or, you know, all those kind of things. So I was a minute part, but I know that the people, you know, upstairs, the fabricators, and you know, Gary, one of the sculptors, and everyone, all these incredible talented people there, you do kind of understand that this has got to be on screen, someone's got to wear it, and you can kind of learn that a creature last series didn't work because of this one little thing. Therefore, you've got to change it a little bit to do something like this. But then again, as I said, sometimes you've got to do things a certain way because it's Doctor Who, and you've got to have a cloth-faced Cyberman that somehow the mouth has got to open, but has also got to look like the original, but it's also got to look new and better because HD. And we're not watching things on a TV screen black and white like this. It's like, everyone's going to be able to see any kind of bits of glue or anything like that. So, and you've got this much time to make it.
In terms of, you know, if you cut your teeth on Doctor Who, did it prepare you then for other shows? You know, was anything more complicated after having done that?
Every job is complicated to some extent. There's always a new night shift, or something that's going to, you know, kind of change your view on what you're doing. Doctor Who was chaos because of what it is, because each week you're going to a different world where there's a different director wanting a different vista, something completely different. Whereas on a different TV show, you're sometimes working within the same area, the same country, the same room, the same something or other. And sometimes Doctor Who, the only similarity is the fact that you've got a blue box and some crazy room inside it, and, you know, 1 to 3 characters that sometimes come back, and you've got to create suddenly a whole new world. And yeah, so I think Doctor Who really does enable a lot of people to go on to other things and to kind of train them to do other things. It certainly upped my skills massively, and kind of opened my eyes to a lot of things. I think a lot of people at Millennium go and do Doctor Who and learn how something like that goes, because it's so crazy and so wonderfully chaotic. And then you can go on and do other things and take that energy there, which is quite nice.
So you moved on to productions like Game of Thrones, which, you know, is another big scale production and probably has its own trials and tribulations. But did you find you could specialize more in prosthetics or something on that? Because I'm assuming there's a little bit less of full body prosthetics in that.
Yeah, so when I went to Game of Thrones, I like for instance, because I was very lucky to kind of be involved in the Ice Warriors, I'd done some prosthetic work, and the last time that I'd done prosthetic work properly was a couple of years before, because you always kind of do different things and wheel off. So it was lovely to be able to go and do some silicone work, which is what I was doing on Game of Thrones. And I found that I was prepared quite nicely, but also you're never quite prepared because it's different. And I was mainly hired to help out with the long night, which was a long night to watch and a long night to work on, and for the people that were there, a long night, and you're living it. And I did maybe I think it was 3 days. That was a couple of us went and helped out with a couple of the background people, and it was incredible. And I was such a small part of it, but you know that you're there during the actual long night, and it is a long night every night. Yeah, although I have to admit, Doctor Who really helped with something like that, because you are doing different things, but they're always the same processes.
But you're also involved with things like the interactive days at the Doctor Experience, you know, applying small prosthetics. That must be quite nice to immediately see the reaction of what you're doing.
Yeah, that was such a thrill, such a huge thrill to do those, because you're just part of the fandom that you love so much. Yeah, I was very lucky to be part of the team that went up there and did those, and we had such a good time with those. And you're doing hundreds of makeups in a day, hundreds. It was absolutely insane. I kind of wish that I had a camera set up at the side to capture, because we didn't stop. There were queues going down the stairs, snaking around, that wanted a prosthetic, and it was so lovely to like have a chat with people, and also it was on a personal note. It was lovely to be one of those fans. And to definitely be one of those fans years ago, and then at this point in my career to kind of be on the other side of it, and talking to people about the stuff that we'd done on the show, and it was they were chaos, absolute chaos those days. Great fun though. Madness.
So, looking back on particularly your time on Doctor Who, is there any one character or creature that you're perhaps most prouder of?
I think it's got to be the Cybermen. I think it's got to be the Cybermen. I've been such a massive fan of the Cybermen, and I was speaking to my boss, Kate Walsh, at Millennium, and we were talking about something, and I mentioned that I'd made a cardboard Cyberman costume when I was 13. And she went, "Oh, that's amazing. That's great." And I said, and she said, "Have you got a picture of it?" And I said, "Yeah." And I showed her a picture, and I said that I got into the Doctor Who magazine when I was 13. And I've still got that magazine, actually. It was printed this big, right in the corner, and it just said, "James Mann, 13, wearing a Cyberman costume made out of cardboard." And I mean, it was absolute rubbish. It was so rubbish. But she forwarded me over to someone who asked if they could interview me for the Doctor Who magazine. It was, I think the article was mainly about fans that had got into Doctor Who through Doctor Who, and they had, they're working on Doctor Who, and it was myself, Gary Pollard, and Joe Browning. I think that was all of us. The fans that had, because Doctor Who had got them into this incredible line of work, and then you're working on Doctor Who. That's, we're mainly doing that. And there was my little Cyberman picture of me in my costume right in that corner, and then there was a picture of me on set with the Cybermen, just as we'd put on all of the outfits and stuff, and I was holding up my brother's 80s Cyberman book, the one that David Banks that did a forward of, or I think he wrote it. It's that gorgeous blue book. I've got it down there, actually. And I was holding that book, and everyone was, all the Cybermen were peering in, and I was like, absolute incredible moment that I had this circular motion. So I think my favorite has got to be the Cybermen. And I wasn't a part of building them, but only really I was helping it cast bits out, and there was lots of pieces that were on the costume and on the chest box and all these little kind of moments and all the various bits. And I was only really doing bits of that, but I was able to take them onto set and realize my own dream, really, which was a dream. It was only really a dream. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a lovely note to say thank you very much for your time, Jimmy. It's been great to talk to you about some of your work.
Absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. It'd be lovely to talk to you too.